Is the SEC the best system to do this?
I think the American public kind of gets it, that the system is not fully working for them. That's what
Oh,
I feel.
yes. I believe that's true.
Breaking news if you hold crypto. SEC sources confirm Gary Gensler, head of the SEC, resignation. And before we get to the meat of the article, there have been a few signs, breadcrumbs if you will, that something like this was coming. Here's the former SEC chairman Jay Clayton from just a few days ago discussing Gary Gensler's abuse of the SEC's power.
What you're hearing from the leaders of the regulatory organizations is if we're not losing cases, if we're not being pushed back on by the courts, we're not doing enough. Think about that for a second. That is a fundamental shift in how we as Americans view the role of the government. I don't want to be in a place where I know the government is going to bring cases they think they're going to lose. Imagine you're the person who is the subject of that case. Now, we're talking about corporations.
Yeah, to see if they can. And if they're not stopped, they're going to,
Right, but this is an ethos now, which is unless we're losing, we're not bringing enough cases. That may be fine for private litigants against each other and think about it. But when you have the power of the state and you're supposed to only bring cases and only make rules that you think are going to pass judicial muster. And we're seeing a shift there, and I think we should think about whether that's appropriate or not. We can go into the details of each one of these cases or each one of these regulations, but at a 30,000-foot level, I think that's problematic.
So obviously very damning, because it's one thing for random investors like you, like me, to say Gary Gensler's unfair, he's abusing his power, but when the former SEC chairman, his predecessor, says this, I mean, that carries whole new weight. And let's remember, Gary Gensler's reign and alleged abuse of power is much more than crypto. The SEC is in charge of keeping investors safe, regulating financial markets more than crypto. And in this past interview on Fox Business, the United States stock market is rigged. Head of the SEC, Gary Gensler, confirms 90 to 95% of orders do not count anymore for pricing. We no longer have a market because nothing you do matters. Supply and demand does not exist.
Well over 90% of those trades go straight to the dark market, to a wholesaler that bought that order flow rather than competing trade by trade.
Short sellers have found a way to make sure that they can never lose by running everyone's order through dark pools so they no longer impact price. And here's how it's supposed to work. Normally, the more buyers a stock has equals the more buying pressure equals the price goes up. Selling pressure usually means stock price goes down. Short sellers lose money if the stock they're shorting increases in price. All that should be standard. The issue is, Bernie Madoff created a scam back in the day called payment for order flow.
Well, speaking of Bernie Madoff, who came up with payment for order flow?
Yeah.
Right.
No, I understand. But
which lets them route everyone's order off exchange / through dark pools, and these orders no longer count to pricing, so prices can never increase. This ensures they can never lose.
Payment for order flow, as you mentioned, is a payment between a broker that a broker receives for your order flow, and there are inherent conflicts of interest there.
They are abusing the system so bad that 90 to 95% of the orders no longer count for pricing, and Gary Gensler confirmed this on national television 494 days ago, and still nothing has been done. Every day the market opens and they let you be robbed.
We're looking at the SEC as to how to facilitate and drive greater efficiency in this market so investors get a better deal. Payment for order flow, as you mentioned, is a payment between a broker that a broker receives for your order flow, and there are inherent conflicts of interest there. We're looking at how we can ensure greater competition. When you place a market order in the US, a market order at a retail platform, well over 90% of those trades go straight to the dark market, to a wholesaler that bought that order flow rather than competing trade by trade. And that's what we're trying to think through under the authorities we have.
Sounds like there are a lot of open doors that we need to get inside and look more deeply into.
And again, this clip is from well over a year and a half ago, and still nothing has been done. And with all that now in consideration, The news today is this. In a stunning revelation, an anonymous official from the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, has reportedly disclosed that Gary Gensler, chairman of the SEC, has submitted his resignation following an internal investigation.
I'm not saying this is without its challenges. There are real challenges. There are real challenges. Complexity helps them.
Give me a better system. Give me a better system to do this than the one we have in place. Because the one we have in place is getting its butt kicked.
I believe in this system. I believe in our American democracy. You're not going to get me to say
I'm not
something
saying.
In a direct quote from that SEC source, they say, Gary Gensler has resigned from his position as chairman of the SEC following an internal investigation into alleged misconduct. The details of the investigation are confidential, but the decision to step down underscores the seriousness of the findings. In a direct quote from another anonymous industry insider, they say, the resignation of Gary Gensler in the wake of an internal investigation is deeply concerning. It calls into question the integrity and effectiveness of the SEC under his leadership. The financial industry relies on the SEC to ensure fair and transparent markets, and any allegations of misconduct at the top level erode investor trust.
You know, with all the financial shenanigans that have gone over the years, the only person we've really brought to heel is Martha Stewart. And that's got to tell you something about just how tilted this thing is.
I've forgotten a little bit about Bernie Madoff, but...
Well, speaking of Bernie Madoff, who came up with payment for order flow?
Yeah,
Right.
No, I understand, but he did serve his time in jail and everything. There.
One guy and one woman. Generally, it seems like people don't go to jail for financial crimes. They pay fines. I think that's a fair statement.
That's fair. But
Generally,
the Department of Justice has the criminal authorities.
Understood.
We have the civil.
That's right. And on the civil side, more than 50% of the fines levied from SEC judgments are not collected.
Now, while the exact nature of the alleged misconduct or the details of the internal investigation remain undisclosed, and I do want to preface, this is just a rumor. Until I see actual facts, a direct statement from him or the SEC, this article is based on anonymous reports and should be treated as speculation until official confirmation is provided. But until then, the public and the financial industry can only speculate on the reasons behind his resignation.
Individual accountability. There's nothing like individual accountability to send a deterrent across the whole market if somebody's held accountable. We only have civil law enforcement, but that means barring them from the industry or trading or appearing before us. Willing to litigate. This agency has to be willing to go into court and, take some losses from time to time.